Hello, everyone, and welcome to my war journal. I try to do it usually once a day or once every other day, but it's been a few days since I've done one of these. And mainly it's because things were happening, but they were happening slowly. And, I didn't want to just log in for 2 minutes to give you an update. So, over the past few days, a bunch of things have accumulated, and I'll give you like my take on them for now. So, um, first of all, in terms of the north, things are more or less the same. Same as I always say, Hezbollah keeps on testing our limits, intensifying a bit, then receding. So it's unclear what's going to be with that. As I mentioned before, I personally think that as far as Israel is concerned, as long as we have, the backup of our allies, it's a really good time for us to um, show Hezbollah that what they're doing right now, which we've sort of gotten used to, with them attacking us on the border and killing a few people, and then we respond and kill a few of theirs, and that's it. But that's not acceptable anymore. Every house in Israel has a safe room. Every new house that's built has a safe room. Like I'm recording this from our safe room, and in Israel that's standard. But people have been saying, if there's any budget that is allocated after this war to building safe rooms, then we haven't done our job, right? We want to be a normal country where people don't have to have a safe room in order for it to be for them to be able to live normally. That should not be the normal state of affairs, that you could be attacked in your own home, whether by missiles or if you're close to the border by, anti-tank missiles, etc. So it's unclear what's going to happen in the north. I guess, obviously Israel prefers to handle one front at a time. And so as much as we can, we're focusing on the south. So that's about that. Not much to say there. Moving down to the south, so the army has been, fighting in Gaza, and I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening there and what I think Hamas has been doing all this time and what's sort of upcoming. Not that I'm not a military expert, but this is my sort of unprofessional guess based on what I see that we have done and the kind of reaction that I've seen from Hamas. So, what have we done? So, basically, I'd say that the above ground area is mostly under Israel's control. Okay, we've already taken over one, maybe two of the hospitals. And as you recall, the hospitals in Gaza are built on top of, a lot of the military facilities that Hamas has. They do this, of course, on purpose in order to hide behind, the most sensitive areas in the Gaza Strip, knowing that those would be areas that would be hard for us to attack, right? Now, as I mentioned before, if you hide amongst civilians, those civilians aren't protected by Geneva Convention, okay? The point is to disincentivize a terrorist group from using civilians as a way to protect itself. So we, in theory, could attack the hospital from the air, just bomb it. That would be something that we could do by international law. However, Israel is trying and trying and trying to let people out of these hospitals. So we send medical equipment to help them be able to leave out, right? So you can imagine all sorts of portable things to help them move out of the hospital. There's tons of stories that by now are so commonplace that it's pointless to mention. Israel providing fuel to the hospitals and Hamas not allowing the hospital to use it because they want the crisis to occur in order to create like pressure on Israel. There was, I don't know the exact details here, but in I think Rantisi Hospital, which is not the main one, there was a guy like a gunman, who was preventing Hamas gunman, who was preventing the people in the hospital from leaving. It took a while till the Israeli army took him out so that people could leave. We also have, in the same vein, we have Al Jazeera, the Qatari Arab network. They went and broadcast live from a hospital, and I guess that was part of their mistake because they asked a old man there, one of these, a Palestinian, what's going on, and he began telling the truth. That the militants are mixing in with the civilians, and then so they walked away from him as he began talking about that. So, by now, even the U.S. government and a lot of people have admitted that this is also well known that Hamas uses these places for its just in a cynical way, and Israel is just trying to do what they can to protect the innocent while still attacking Hamas. And it does come at a cost for us. I don't know yet that there have been any casualties as a result of that, but it means it takes much longer, okay? Because you have to be very careful of what you do with everything that you do. It also gives Hamas time to, regroup, to hide evidence, to run away, to do all sorts of things. So it's important just that we understand why it's taking a long time. And also that it's complex. And then, on top of that, you have things like misinformation. So, and I mean, it's really by now hard to call it misinformation. It feels like blatant lies. So the BBC, the Reuters, sent out like a update about the way the IDF was performing this, some of this attack on the hospitals, which are, mixed in with Hamas. The main one is Shifa Hospital. That's supposedly planted right above the main command of Hamas, and that's currently where our forces are focused. Okay, on the outskirts of the Shifa Hospital. Today we had like we attacked or engaged one of the outposts in the perimeter, which is part of the hospital, trying to get evidence about where the hostages are. We'll get to that in a moment, but so Israel is surrounding this hospital and also other hospitals, and Reuters came out and said that Israel included in their team also Arab-speaking people, Arab-speaking soldiers, so that they could talk to the civilians that are in these hospitals and doctors. And then the BBC quoted Reuters but changed one word. Instead of included Arab-speaking people and doctors, it said targeted, as if and implied that the IDF is shooting at doctors and Arab-speaking people. And they repeated this and had to recant this a few hours later and came and said, actually, we made a mistake. It fell below our reporting standards. And you're like, how is you had all that report right except for one word that just happens to implicate Israel with murder, with indiscriminate murder. It, as people have mentioned, it's one thing to make mistakes that sometimes fall on one side of the political element and then sometimes on the other side. That's what's called random distribution. Sometimes you fall here, sometimes you fall there. But BBC always seems to get it wrong in one direction. So I don't think we need to spell out the word anti-Semitism for them, but we should at least know that that's what's going on. Now, as regards to the hostages, so there's rumors that an initial deal is forming. So there's about 240 hostages, approximately. It sounds like there'll be a deal that will look something like, at least again, this is the current situation of the deal. A deal is nothing until it's actually signed, but that Hamas is willing to release 50 of the hostages, some of the younger people, and in return get like a few days of a ceasefire, not a real ceasefire, but like a few days for them to regroup, and also a release of 150 women. Again, this is the current situation in the negotiations, according to what was reported. Like 150 women that were charged none of murder, maybe some violent crime, like terrorists attacking people with knives, etc., or attempted murder, but not that actually killed people. Now, it's not clear yet if that's what's going to happen. Israel is, if you look at this deal, right? So think about it for a moment. Here we're talking about giving Hamas about a week to recover, and then also giving them a ratio of 1 to 3, right? So one of our people for 3 of their people. That's already much, much, much better than the last time we had an exchange. The last time we had an exchange, they gave us 1%, Gilad Shalit, and we gave them like 1,000. I don't remember the exact number, but approximately several hundred or 1,000 or maybe a bit over 1,000 people there. So this does prove the main thesis of the Israeli government, which is that the more we put pressure on Hamas militarily and don't give way on, let them, in a sense, extort us with the hostages, the lower the cost will be to get the hostages out. That's an incredibly important thing, right? And so there's a dilemma now of what's better, right? What's a better move? To pressure them further, to reduce the cost, and also keep in mind that 5 days of a break means 5 days for international pressure to start mounting up against Israel. On the other hand, it might be already a good deal, 50 people. I mean, that's 20% of them, mainly the younger people. So, the damage done to them by being held there is probably greater than for the adults. So it's obviously a difficult, and it's only a break for a few days. It's not a ceasefire. It's more like a pause in the war. So those are the rumors that the reporters are mentioning, and I can only say that I don't envy the people that have to make these decisions, but I hope they make the right one, and I trust that God will make sure to guide them in the right direction. One more thing about the hostages is that based on evidence that we have, a baby was born in captivity. There was a pregnant woman that was taken, and from what we know, she gave birth while being a hostage. I'm not sure that this has ever happened that we know of, that in a recorded way, and it's just insane. These people are just, monsters, to do this, take these people to whatever. I don't need to say much more than that. One more thing about the media is that a few days ago, you might have seen this already, and I might have even mentioned this in a previous post, I'm not sure, but a few days ago, I think very much like at the end of last week, it became public that several of the people that the New York Times and BBC, I think, and CNN, I'm not sure exactly all of them, I think also Reuters, that they were relying on as photographers in the Gaza Strip, that they actually, people began noticing that there's really good quality pictures from the raids in the first day, from the breaching of the fence, etc. And so they were like, why is that? And they began to figure out that the people taking the photographers doing this were actually photographers that these news outlets use. And so there was this, feeling like, you guys, first of all, you're hiring people that seem to be very buddy up with Hamas. So, how do you trust what they're sending you? And even more concerning was the possibility that these people had known about the attack, meaning let's be clear, the photographers clearly did, because they were there. They were there with the mob. So the real question was, how closely were they in touch with the news agencies? And did those news agencies know in advance that something had happened? Now, that was very unlikely that would have been the case, but you never know, right? You never know if a guy is saying, oh, there's going to be a big thing, and I'll give you a scoop in advance. So some of these news outlets, indeed, the moment this came to light, disassociated with these people. But I just think it shows you again how much we need to be careful of what we believe from the media. And I don't mean that only about Palestinian media or Qatari media or whatever. I think media in general, people have biases, and we need to take that into account. And this is just another one of those cases. I do think at the same time that there's no comparison between the lies of Hamas on media versus the lies of Israel, if there were any in this war. And many times Israel might make a mistake, but it doesn't lie on purpose, not nearly as much as Hamas does. I'm talking just not in terms of my personal feeling, just in terms of what's been documented. Okay, so we have documentation of plenty of Hamas, of what's called Pallywood. Just Google it. Staging mass, like as if there's tons of people that are dead, and then the dead start moving and getting up, and it turns out it's just all an act. Okay, so plenty of these things, plenty of examples. Just you can look it up. Okay, the last two things I want to talk about are what I'm guessing will be the strategy moving forward. So Israel basically controls the top, okay, the open air, like the upper world, and Hamas is still, most of its fighting force, as far as I can tell, is down in its tunnels. Some of these tunnels are huge. Okay, some of these tunnels you can drive in. Okay, so try to imagine a tunnel where there's enough room for a vehicle to maneuver in. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're trying to imagine these. It's not all these tiny cubbies we're talking about. Some of these things are massive. And it seems pretty obvious that Hamas was hoping to sort of attack Israel, like emerge from the tunnels with small commando units and attack the Israeli forces, but has not been able to do that. But still, they have a lot of their fighting force in there, and there is the question of where the hostages are being kept. One option for where they're being kept is down these tunnels. Another option is that they were smuggled to the south of Gaza when we basically had everybody, evacuate the north. And the third option is that they already left the Gaza Strip at all, okay, completely, meaning maybe they went even further south and somehow escaped through a tunnel to Egypt's territory, okay, to the Sinai Desert. Also an option. So I don't know what we know. Obviously, this would be only only in the intelligence echelons. They would know this, and obviously I would not know. But the point is that I get the sense that we control the air, which means that hopefully we can prevent missiles from being shot, and those are decreasing. But we still need to fight the Hamas fighting force, and they're down inside. They just want us to come. Now, a normal way to behave in this situation, if we were like the U.S., would be to just wait them out. We can cut them off from the world and let them start to eat up all their stores, and we can wait for 3 months. Like, what do I care? If all we're doing is preventing them from getting resupplies, okay, so let them stay down there in their bunker until they come out. The two, even the hostage situation in this case is not a factor, because the moment they would have trouble, they would have an incentive to let go of the hostages. So even that, you could argue, is not a reason why not to do that. It seems also bloodless. You're just putting pressure on them until they give up. The main reason why not to do that is because of the factor of time. Israel is not America. The longer this goes on, the more there'll be an uproar from the world demanding that Israel be flexible and give up, or negotiate with Hamas, etc., etc., etc. And Israel understands that time is never on its side, so that we need to operate quickly. But operating quickly may mean very boldly and getting great achievements in a short time. It also might mean a lot of casualties. Okay, anybody that you ask will tell you that tunnel fighting is a completely different story. Very, very dangerous, very hard to fight. Bullets ricocheting from walls that are very close by, etc. It's you can't see very well. It's all a big mess. So and fighting in the tunnels where there might be hostages there is also a big mess. So, but I do believe that that's where it's going to go. We're going to be we've now been dealing with the upper level of Gaza, and what's left is the main thing that's left is the lower level of Gaza. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I'll end up with one last point. Yesterday there was a big rally in Washington, D.C. 300,000 people, I think, approximately, came to it. Jews that came to demonstrate and in unity, in support of the Jews in America and of Israel. And, obviously for people who were there, it was a very grand moment. And a lot of people talking about how people that had no connection to their Judaism before were coming. The one main point that people are making, and I think it's worthy of note, is the different atmosphere in these in this demonstration versus the ones that are pro-Palestinian, or pro-Hamas, more correctly. You know, there's such an obvious difference, such a huge difference between these groups of people that it's like, it just, all you need to do is look and ask yourself, who do you want to be part of, right? The Palestinian protestations across the world are violent, very loud. They're waving only the Palestinian flag, in addition to, let's say, the Hamas flag and sometimes the Daesh flag. Daesh is ISIS. And over here, you had, first of all, lots of American flags together with the Star of David, blue and white, Israeli flag. Nobody's wearing masks. In the Palestinian one, there's a lot of people wearing masks and covering their faces, for like, because they're like, Antifa or all these other things. And instead of shouting and burning things, and violence, there was solemnity, there was prayer, there was, respect for law enforcement. I think it only shows even more so, like what I said in the past episodes, how much this is a battle for the soul of America and the soul of the West. Okay, it's a question of what kind of a country do you want to have? And this is just like one small point of it. Of how do you want change to happen in the world? How do you want life to be? What do you want the protests in your street to be like? Full of rage, or and vandalism, and tearing down, American flags to make room for the Palestinian one? Like there was one thing that was shown of that type. Or do you want it to be respectful of America, in favor of America, in favor of your country if you're in Britain or you're in Germany, or all these bastions of Western culture, things that say we believe in this thing and we want it to live up to its ideals, or more like we're against this thing, we want to tear it down, which is the vibe that comes from the Palestinian ones. I don't know. I just think that it's meaningful, and I hope that people watch and take to heart, because I know that the silent majority in the West is good and wants what's good. So all they need to do is speak up, and I hope that they do. Anyway, I will probably upload another video tomorrow. Not just me talking, but of course, if there's any concrete updates, and of course I'll come here and give my thing. But I'm interviewing somebody, so I will hopefully upload it tomorrow. And with that, I wish you all a good day, be safe, and Am Yisrael Chai.